the next one is training versus inference. What do you guys have in terms of thought around the importance of inference nowadays compared to training, or maybe the usage of quantization in inference and also in training? Where is the impact better? More significant. Obviously, I just said that 80% of the AI hardware will be used for inference by 2028, according to a report. But like, what is your perspective? I can start with Colin.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't have any kind of insight into the training versus inference hardware. But we did see one interesting thing, which was DeepSeek. When they trained their model, they trained it at it's called FP8, which is different from what was typical of people to use, which was BF16. So the main thing to focus on there is the 8 versus 16. So it was half the size for actually training, which was unusual at the time. People usually tried to train with as much precision as possible because there's all these tiny, tiny little changes that happen as you train the model step by step. Inference obviously is kind of more so the golden standard for where quantization is used. Because it just, you don't need to necessarily run it at the same percent, like, especially going to FP8, it's basically indistinguishable from BF16, and you're already dropping half the size there. And what you can do with that half the size, you could also quantize the, I won't get into it, but the KV cache. And so to Steven's point in the chat there, yes, sometimes it's about trying to run it faster on the same hardware. And one of the ways you can run it faster on the same hardware is by allowing the model to take up more space with its caching. And that way you can actually speed up concurrent requests. So maybe at full precision, you could only handle 2 requests at a time. But at half precision, you can now handle 4 requests at a time. And that actually doesn't add any extra latency. It just straight up doubles the performance as long as you have 4 requests coming in.
Excellent. Thank you. Eldar?
Yeah, so I mean, nothing more special to add on top of this. Like I think, like as Colin mentioned, DeepSeek was, I think, the first one which managed to produce like very stable training with FP8 and get to like a very performant model. There is some work on getting this to even lower bit widths, like training in FP4, like in 4, and so on. But usually, none of these academic papers have still shown that this scales well, like with larger models, because I'm not sure whether it doesn't work, or maybe it's just like because in the academic like environment, it's not that easy to train very large models. But there are papers who are actually showing that we can do this even to 4-bit and push even more. But there is still this kind of huge question mark on whether we'll be able to scale that. But
it's like, where's the trade-off? Like at a certain point, you're having to shove so much more data through for not that much more quality once you go to really low bit rate. So it's difficult there. That's very important, like especially like because like as you go lower in bit width, usually we need more tokens to converge, like as Colin just pointed out. And that it becomes like a really good question of like, does it actually make sense to push more if we have to put in more trillions and trillions of tokens, right?
So
whereas on the other hand, we have these like post-training quantization tricks, which we are both using in Llama CPB community and VLM, which can do a pretty decent job these days. And then it's just a matter of what makes more sense.
So there was a question here. Is there any good way to benchmark the actual response quality loss? I think you replied, Colin.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it is subjective. But yes, they're in a future slide we'll be talking
about. We'll talk about
sure.
evals. Yes, definitely. So what I wanted to maybe review or go through again is it pretty much depends on the hardware. And the previous generations were trained on full precision because maybe they didn't have tensors that could support lower bits. Am I right?
That is part of it for sure. Like we do have more FP8 tensors now in modern chips. That's become more of a focus. And there was also like if you look at the specs, there's some of them where I can't speak to why this happens. The hardware does not make sense to me. But running at FP32 was like at a certain number of flops, and then for some reason running at FP16 was like double or like half the speed, despite the fact that it's half the size. It's just something about the way the architecture is set up that doesn't work well. So yeah, that is likely the case that we didn't have optimized hardware for this.
Right. I've seen the MI350 series from AMD recently in Keynote, and then they have FP4 as well in their core tensors available. So I guess the lower sort of bits support the hardware has, the more you can involve quantization even at the training or pre-training stage. Is that correct?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, like the number of like there's like for example, if you look at the H100, like BF16 has I think 2,000 teraflops. So there are like tensor cores for BF16 operations, and they're like I think 2,000 teraflops, something like this. And then as you go to Int8 and FP8, this doubles like to more or less 4K in flops, and that's basically what you can leverage. But then the problem is that if you go below that, then there is no hardware support. So you cannot get faster than that, and you just can do it just for the sake of having a smaller model at the end and leverage that during inference. But during training, that's the limit, at least with us. But now like Blackwell, and as you mentioned from AMD, it comes with FP4 tensor cores. So we'll be like, it's gonna be 2x on top of the FP8 in flops. So we'll be able kind of to push even more for this. But then, yeah. The other question is stability of the trading and so on.
Exactly. But on the inference side, like there's not real limit because, we'll see later in the slides, we will even go for extreme quantization with like really, really super, super low bits for sure. The biggest misconception about quantization, since like you're working with it on a day-to-day basis, did you have anything to share about maybe some people, customers or like partners or peers that are working not from your field, but that are maybe consuming AI, where they may have some misconception about quantization?
Yeah, I can start with this one. Yeah, actually learned recently so RC published a blog post about quantization in particular for the purposes of running on CPUs, because there's been a little bit more push lately for high capacity CPUs, especially from Amazon with some ARM chips. I don't remember the names of them off the top of my head, but anyways, point is, yes, Graviton, thank you. Quantization, I think probably the biggest misconception is a combination of just not even knowing it's a thing. Like not realizing that this is a concept that exists. And then even if they realize that it exists, the concept that we're still using this naive approach of just, cut the bits in half, like, take the 8, cut it here. All right, this is what we got now. Mm-hmm. Like we didn't care about but that's not what basically anyone's doing anymore. And hasn't been for a couple of years now. But yeah, instead there's quite a few algorithms that, this 4 bits is not really 4 bits. It's 4 bits plus, basically.
Of course. Eldar?
Yeah, one thing that actually I found quite interesting is the fact that Int4 models, for example, like weight-only quantized models, at least when running them on GPUs, there are cases when they are slower than the unquantized models. So we can even, I think I can maybe show some plots later on. But basically, once we increase the number of like requests that we are sending towards the model, so there is this distinction like between memory bandwidth bottlenecks and the compute bottlenecks. We can get into that later, but basically, once we cross this boundary and go from the memory bandwidth bottleneck to compute bottleneck, Int4 actually becomes slightly slower than an unquantized model. And that's something that people usually don't expect to see in practice, because there's always this kind of, if it's quantized, it's always faster. So that's something that we always have to take care about when we're talking about quantization and efficient inference.
Yeah. Actually, I watched your presentation. It's even for me, it's really hard. Sometimes I gotta watch it again to remember when is it memory bound, when is it compute bound, because it's so hard. You know what I mean? So it's like false positive, and false negatives. A lot of people are confused of what is false positive, what is false negative. And in the compute bound and memory bound, sometimes I really have to go back and read the doc and realize which operation is compute bound, or which case, which scenario we're memory bound instead, for sure. So thanks. And also, a lot of people think that as soon as you quantize, that's what I notice, the quality is going down, like cheap down, which is not always true. Do you guys confirm?
Yeah. I mean, there's a point at which, yes, it does. And there are some diehards who say, "Give me BF16 or give me death." But there is definitely an amount of quantization that can be applied where it'll be indistinguishable.
Yeah. It's not you're not going to write like a Pulitzer article or I don't know, a novel that would have a price. Obviously, you won't use a quantized model for that.
Yeah,
for sure. But there's a lot of things you can do with quantized models, for sure. Okay.
One thing before we move on, I noticed Gladstone also asked about if quantization applies to other architectures than transformers. So I will say one quick thing about this. There's stable diffusion.cpp, which is kind of a similar vein to llama.cpp that supports quantization of stable diffusion. And I've heard very good things about it. I'm not in the stable diffusion field. I don't really look into it much, but I have heard very good things. And similarly, diffusion text models, I believe, are receiving support in llama.cpp recently. So that's an interesting field as well.
Very interesting. Actually, even Jim and I released a diffusion LLM, diffusion-based text model.
Nice.
I actually registered and I in the waitlist, and I could go to 2,000 tokens per second. So that was very impressive, which is kind of crazy. But a lot of people, some people said that the bigger, I heard that in Thursday AI, the bigger the context, you may have some surprises. Some people are skeptical about this, but diffusion model can be used for a chatbot as well, and we have the proof with what you just said, and Gemini diffusion model as well. So I don't have the link, but if you have the chance, guys or people, you can give it a shot. Join the wait list, and it's very impressive.